Welcome back to Screamville, where the ghosts are real, the stories are chilling, and the New Orleans Saints still haven't figured out how to exorcise the demons from their playoff dreams. Seriously, I think one of these haunted places might be hiding their Super Bowl hopes. Somebody check the attic. If you've made it through parts 1 and 2 without sleeping with the lights on, congratulations. But don't get too comfy. This is Louisiana after all. The gumbo's spicy, the spirits are strong, and I'm not just talking about what's in your glass. Today we're diving deeper into the bayous, plantations, and historic back alleys that give this state its ghostly reputation. These are the places locals whisper about, tourists run from, and ghosts apparently treat like rent-free Airbnbs. We've got shadowy figures in hallways, footsteps when no one's home, and one house so haunted it makes the Saints' defense look sturdy. So grab your holy water, call your grandma to pray over you, because part 3 is here. And these haunts are ready to show you why Louisiana isn't just the birthplace of jazz. It's the capital of things that go who dat in the night. Let's do this. If you've ever wanted to take a stroll through a city where no one complains, no one honks their horn, and everyone's, well, dead, welcome to St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 in New Orleans. From the outside, it looks like a bunch of small, crumbling stone houses packed together tighter than Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras. But step inside, and you'll quickly realize, this isn't just a cemetery. It's a ghost town with personality. And believe me, the residents have stories to tell, whether you want to hear them or not. Back in the late 1700s, New Orleans was in desperate need of a new place to stash its dearly departed. The old cemetery was overflowing, literally, and let's just say the neighbors were getting uncomfortable. So in 1789, St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 was created just outside the city limits. You know, because if there's one thing you want near your city after a massive yellow fever outbreak, it's a fresh pile of bodies. Practical and only slightly creepy. Now, if you're wondering why all the graves are above ground, here's the deal. New Orleans is basically a big sponge. Try burying a coffin underground here, and you'll end up with Uncle Larry popping back up after the next heavy rain. So, they built tombs above ground in the European style. The result? Rows of miniature marble mansions for the dead, stacked like real estate in a ghostly version of downtown Manhattan. As you walk through the tight alleyways of crypts, you're literally stepping over centuries of history, and possibly onto someone's great-great-grandpa. Over 100,000 souls are packed into this one city block, with some tombs holding generations of families like a supernatural timeshare. These tombs aren't just markers, they're monuments to the city's legends, scandals, and downright spooky events. Speaking of legends, let's talk about the most famous resident, Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. She was a healer, a priestess, a hairdresser, and basically the original influencer. People still visit her tomb today to leave offerings, draw X's on the wall, and ask her for favors, kind of like a spiritual customer service desk. The difference is, if she likes your request, she might grant it. If she doesn't, well, you might find your shoes on the roof or your ex suddenly texting you again. Legend has it, Marie's still roaming the cemetery in a colorful head wrap and flowing dress, checking in on her turf. Some say she hums voodoo chants. Others swear they've been scratched or shoved after disrespecting her tomb. Moral of the story? Don't sass the queen, alive or dead. But Marie isn't the only ghost making house calls here. Let me introduce you to Henry Veens, a poor sailor who gave someone his tomb papers before heading to sea, only to return and find out his plot had been sold out from under him. Talk about a bad Airbnb experience. He died soon after and was buried in an unmarked grave. Now, folks say his spirit wanders the cemetery, politely asking visitors if they've seen his family tomb. Honestly, it's the most polite haunting you'll ever experience. And then there's Alphonse, the friendly ghost who'll hold your hand during your visit. No, really, he's known for gently taking people's hands and leading them down the path like he's giving a tour. He's also been caught redecorating his tomb with flowers stolen from other graves. A little ghostly home makeover, if you will. Other ghost stories include a mysterious man in Civil War attire, a black dog that vanishes into thin air, and even a smelly ghost named Jimmy, who shows up to tend his wife's grave with a smile and a stench. There's something poetic about a man who still brings flowers, even in the afterlife, and doesn't let a little decomposition stop him. So if you ever find yourself in New Orleans and feel like taking a walk through a place where history and hauntings go hand in hand, St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 is calling your name. Just remember, stay respectful and bring an offering for Marie. You ever drive past a place and just know something terrible went down there? That's the vibe you get near the Old Pea Farm just outside Shreveport, Louisiana. Don't let the name fool you. They weren't farming peas, and it sure wasn't green and peaceful. No, the pea farm was a penal farm, basically a prison with crops. And if the crops didn't scare you, the inmates, guards, and ghosts probably would. The place started up in the early 1900s, back when people thought the best way to run a jail was to slap some handcuffs on you and throw you in the dirt with a hoe and a threat. You don't work, you don't eat, they'd say, which is really motivational until you realize they mean it literally. People were out there sweating under the Louisiana sun, planting food, harvesting crops, and trying not to get smacked upside the head by a guard who woke up on the wrong side of the shackles. There were two parts to the pea farm: the main men's prison, and a smaller women's facility tucked off in the woods like some kind of haunted hotel you definitely didn't want to check into. Some say the women's unit was a real place, others say it was a rumor, but everyone agrees that if it was real, it was the last place you'd want to be sent. Word around the swamp is the women were eventually tossed into the main prison with the men, and, well, things got even worse from there. Now here's where things start to get seriously spooky. The conditions at the pea farm? Absolutely medieval. Guards were reportedly rough, inmates were dying left and right, and instead of sending the bodies back to their families, they just buried them on site. Somewhere out there, under the overgrown bamboo and crumbling bricks, are hundreds of forgotten graves. Some say if you trip over a root, it might just be someone's femur. Honestly, it's the kind of place where even your ghost would want to call in sick. After about 50 years of horror, the prison shut down in the 1950s, which probably came as a relief to the living and a rude awakening for the dead. They left the buildings to rot, the farmland to fade, and the ghosts, well, the ghosts never clocked out. The ruins are still there today, tucked deep in the trees behind a bunch of no trespassing signs that basically translate to "Enter at your own supernatural risk." And people do go in, because nothing says great idea like sneaking into an abandoned prison in the middle of the night. Those brave or foolish enough to trespass tell wild tales. Footsteps echoing in empty hallways, moans from long-dead inmates, and shadows darting across doorways like they're late for their ghostly shift. Some say a female spirit still wanders the women's section, sobbing quietly. Either that, or someone dropped their phone and realized they had no signal. Honestly, both are terrifying. There are stories of people being pushed, scratched, or even dragged by invisible hands. One guy claimed he got chased by a shadow figure so fast, he sprinted into the woods and wrecked his truck trying to escape. That's right, the ghosts at Pea Farm don't just haunt, they chase. You can imagine the insurance claim. "Sir, were you under the influence?" "No, officer, it was a ghost." "You're going to jail." "Been there? That's the problem." The woods around the prison aren't any better. People say they've seen lights dancing in the trees, heard whispers with no source, and spotted faces peeking out from the brush. And just to really crank up the creep factor, flashlights and phones tend to die mysteriously in the area. People report their batteries draining in minutes, even if fully charged. One guy said the darkness inside the prison was so thick, it felt like the walls were swallowing the light. That's not paranormal. That's paranoia served fresh with a side of nope. To this day, the Pea Farm is considered one of Louisiana's most haunted places, but you won't find it on any guided tour. It's locked up, patrolled, and off-limits. But that hasn't stopped thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and the occasional YouTuber from slipping through the fence, hoping to catch a glimpse of something or someone from beyond. So, if you're ever near Shreveport and you feel a sudden chill, hear someone whisper your name, or catch a shadow out of the corner of your eye, just remember, you might have gotten a little too close to the Pea Farm, where the peas were a lie, and the dead don't like uninvited visitors. If ghosts had a favorite concert venue, the Shreveport Municipal Auditorium would be at the top of the playlist. Built in 1929 and decked out in grand Art Deco fashion, this Louisiana landmark was meant to honor fallen soldiers and entertain the living. Well, mission accomplished, except now it also entertains the dead. And let's be honest, if your building once doubled as a temporary morgue and hosted the likes of Elvis Presley and Hank Williams, it's pretty much destined to be haunted. The auditorium may be famous for launching musical legends, but it's also infamous for the strange, unexplained happenings that still occur on a regular basis. Staff have reported phantom footsteps, disembodied voices, and shadowy figures lurking in the corners. One janitor swears he heard someone clapping wildly after a sound check, even though the building was completely empty. Either a ghost was really into the acoustics, or the spirits are just hard to impress and only clap when they're shocked you hit the high note. And then there's the girl in the blue dress. Yep, she's a regular. People claim to see her darting through the hallways, peeking from behind curtains, or giggling when no one's there. She's like a tiny paranormal stage manager who never takes a day off. One tour guide even nicknamed her Backstage Becky and says she once felt a cold little hand tug on her shirt, probably trying to direct her to her mark. Let's not forget the spirit affectionately known as Sarge, an older man who apparently has a thing for ladies' hair. Women report feeling someone gently touch their shoulder or play with their ponytail, and there's no one around. Now, that's creepy. And also very rude, Sarge. Consent still matters in the afterlife. Now, about Elvis. This place is where he gave one of his first big performances, and some say the king never really left the building. Staff claim to have heard faint strains of Heartbreak Hotel echoing through the rafters late at night. Others say they've seen a shadowy figure in a rhinestone jumpsuit in the wings. And if you hear someone whisper, thank you very much," and no one's around, just bow, wave, and leave immediately. The basement? Oh, that's a horror movie waiting to happen. Once used as a temporary morgue, it's now a hotbed for paranormal activity. People hear groaning, crying, and even a baby's wail coming from down there. And if you're thinking, that sounds like plumbing, trust me, no pipe has ever moaned like a Victorian ghost mother in labor. More than one visitor has noped out of there mid-tour. The activity has drawn ghost hunters from across the country, and they've caught everything from mysterious orbs floating by to electronic voice recordings of spirits saying stuff like, "We saw the light," and "Get out." One investigator claimed they were pushed, though to be fair, they were standing near the edge of a creaky stage after 4 Red Bulls. Still, if ghosts are speaking, this might be the only concert venue where even the audience gets a mic. One electrician swore he saw a young man in an old crew shirt wandering around before a boxing match. The guy asked, "Hey, what time does the fight start?" and then vanished into thin air. I don't know about you, but I'd either cancel the fight or charge admission for ghost spectating. Imagine buying front row seats only to find a translucent guy already sitting there. Every Halloween season, the auditorium opens its doors for haunted tours, and things get downright theatrical. Tour guides love to share the stories of unexplained piano music, sudden cold spots, and the occasional whisper in your ear from someone who definitely isn't on payroll. One visitor even claimed their camera captured a blurry woman in white sitting in the balcony, clearly not happy with the lighting choices. In the end, the Shreveport Municipal Auditorium isn't just haunted, it's practically hosting a ghostly variety show every night. Whether it's little blue dress Becky hiding behind the curtain, Sarge getting way too handsy, or the spirit of Elvis still demanding an encore, this venue proves that in Shreveport, the show really must go on, even if half the audience has been dead for decades. By day, the USS Kid looks like a proud war veteran docked peacefully on the Mississippi River in Baton Rouge. But when the sun goes down and the river mist creeps up the levee, something changes. Locals say it's not just an old destroyer anymore. It becomes something else entirely. They whisper about ghostly sailors pacing the deck, shadow figures vanishing into the fog, and strange voices drifting from radios that haven't worked in decades. Some say the Kid still sails, but only in the spirit world. The ship has a wild history that almost begs for a haunting. It was named after Rear Admiral Isaac Kidd, one of the first men to die at Pearl Harbor. When the new Kid launched during World War II, its crew embraced their inner pirates, literally flying a Jolly Roger from the mast like it was Halloween every day. They racked up battle stars across the Pacific, dodged submarines, saved airmen, and traded jokes in the mess hall like it was a floating frat house. But as any sailor knows, when you laugh too much at sea, the ocean has a way of slapping the smile off your face. That slap came in April 1945, off the coast of Okinawa. A kamikaze pilot crashed straight into the Kid's forward boiler room, blowing it apart and killing 38 men instantly. Survivors said the scene was pure chaos: fire, twisted steel, and screaming. The crew buried their fallen brothers at sea the next day, just hours before they found out the president had died. That kind of back-to-back trauma has a way of searing itself into steel. And maybe, just maybe, it left behind more than scorched paint and a memorial plaque. When the war ended, the Kid was eventually retired, nearly scrapped, then rescued and brought to Baton Rouge as a museum. Locals lined the banks of the river, cheering her arrival like it was Mardi Gras in camo. Today, visitors climb aboard and explore her tight hallways and rusty gun turrets. But not everyone's just looking for history. Some are looking for ghosts, and it seems like the ghosts are looking back. People say they've heard footsteps echoing through empty corridors, heavy steel doors slamming shut with no wind or warning, and voices whispering behind bulkheads. More than a few guests have claimed to see full-body apparitions of sailors in 1940s uniforms, calmly walking the decks like they're still on patrol. One person even said they watched a ghost arm go through a wall like it was late for inspection. At least, the spirits still follow naval protocol. One dad brought his Cub Scout troop for an overnight stay, thinking it would be educational. It was. One kid swore he felt a hand on his shoulder when nobody was behind him. Another woke up to find a sailor standing over him, only for the man to vanish when he blinked. The guide admitted later he liked to warn people about the old captain. Whether that's a real ghost or just good storytelling is up for debate, but either way, it kept the kids from running around too much. Ghost hunters love this place. Some say they've caught strange orbs and eerie voices on tape, especially around the sleeping quarters and radio room, right near where the kamikaze struck. One guy said he felt an anxiety attack come out of nowhere, like someone was staring right through him. Others have taken pictures that show smoky outlines of men in uniform, standing where no living person was. Staff don't shy away from the ghost talk either. They let people camp overnight in the same bunks the sailors used, and they don't make any promises about what or who you might see. One guy joked that you're more likely to get poked by a ghost than bitten by a mosquito. And that's saying something in Louisiana. Nobody's ever confirmed which ghost haunts the Kid. Some say it's the captain. Others say it's just a few of the sailors who never made it home. One guide laughed and said, "The real horror is trying to wear a full dress uniform in July." Still, plenty of visitors leave the Kid with goosebumps, and not just because of the air conditioning. So if you ever find yourself in Baton Rouge and feeling brave, step aboard the USS Kid. Just don't be surprised if you hear boots on the deck behind you, and no one's there, or if your camera picks up someone you didn't see with your eyes. Because some ships never stop sailing, they just switch to ghost mode. Back in the French Quarter, nestled between the Jazz and the Jambalaya, there's a charming hotel that's been scaring the beignets out of guests for years. Hotel Provincial may look like a lovely courtyard paradise, but don't be fooled. Beneath those shutters and wrought iron balconies lurk the echoes of war, moaning soldiers, and the occasional overly helpful ghost nurse. Because nothing says Southern hospitality like a Confederate spirit straightening your sheets. Long before it became a boutique spot with pillow mints and air conditioning, the building served as a Confederate war hospital. And if you're thinking that sounds like a breeding ground for hauntings, you'd be right. Imagine rows of wounded soldiers, doctors rushing around, and the scent of ether filling the air. Now imagine all that energy deciding to stick around for 150 years and start showing up in guest reviews. That's Hotel Provincial. One poor security guard took the elevator up to what he thought was a normal floor. The doors opened, and instead of plush carpeting and art prints, he saw a full-blown Civil War hospital ward in action. Men groaning, doctors rushing, blood, beds. And him? He smacked that elevator button so fast he probably left a ghost of his own behind. Rumor has it he never went back up to that floor again. Can't blame him. Ghosts in uniforms don't usually tip. Guests often report waking up to bloodstains on their sheets, except when they turn on the light, the stains vanish. Poof, just like your hopes of getting a good night's sleep. Others hear faint cries, dragging footsteps, or whispers in rooms where no one else is staying. And that's just the welcome package. The building most people say is the epicenter of the weirdness is one particular wing that used to be the hospital itself. They say the walls remember everything, even when you're just trying to enjoy your complimentary coffee. Then there's the nurse. Oh yes, the infamous ghost nurse. She doesn't scream or rattle chains. No, she's a quiet overachiever. Guests have spotted her gliding down hallways, fixing pillows, tucking sheets, and probably judging your sleep posture. Some claim she gently brushes past them in the night. Others swear they feel watched, like someone's doing bed checks. Honestly, if she offered turn-down service and a mint, she might get 5 stars on Yelp. A woman once shared that her camera completely died every time she tried to take a picture inside one room. Worked fine before, worked fine after. But in that room, nada. Then there was the balcony door situation. She locked both doors, went to bed, woke up, they were wide open, locked them again, slept again, boom, open again. Either the ghosts were trying to sneak out for a cigarette, or they really hated being cooped up. The hotel doesn't shy away from its haunted reputation. In fact, it's proudly featured on ghost tours around the city. Some guests book it because of the hauntings, hoping to catch a glimpse of something spooky. Others end up checking out early, physically or mentally. You haven't really experienced New Orleans until you've eaten gumbo, danced in the street, and screamed because a phantom tugged your blanket at 3 a.m. Not all the spirits are sinister. Some have a sense of humor. One woman said her bed was being shaken like a Polaroid picture. Another found her suitcase mysteriously unpacked. One guest claimed a ghost soldier stood at the end of the bed like he was guarding her, which would be sweet if it didn't cause her to sleep with the lights on for 3 weeks straight after checking out. Whatever's happening at Hotel Provincial, it's more than just creaky floors and overactive imaginations. Something, or someone, is lingering. Whether it's soldiers who never left, nurses still on duty, or just the city's history refusing to be quiet. Guests leave with stories they didn't expect and goosebumps they can't explain. And sometimes a ghostly roommate. So if you're booking a stay there, bring an open mind, a healthy sense of humor, and maybe a backup pair of pajamas. Because when your bed shakes, your balcony doors open themselves, and someone whispers your name in the dark, well, let's just say you won't be the first to sprint to the lobby asking for a new room. or a priest. And that's a wrap on this ghostly road trip through Louisiana's most haunted spots. From restless spirits in old plantations to haunted hospitals that make WebMD look like a Disney movie, we've seen it all. And if you think the ghosts are spooky, just wait until you accidentally step into a Louisiana swamp barefoot, because the only thing worse than a ghost is a gator with an attitude and a Cajun accent. Now listen, if you feel something crawling up your leg tonight, don't panic just yet. It's probably just swamp moss or a voodoo curse. Either way, light a candle, say a prayer, and maybe avoid looking in the mirror 3 times. You never know what's watching in the bayou, especially after sunset. And if your grandma's cooking pot starts rattling for no reason, run, don't stir. Be sure to stick around because the next part is going to be even creepier. We're diving deeper into the haunted underbelly of Louisiana, where the ghosts are sassier, the legends are darker, and the spirits might just join you for supper. So hit that like button before a swamp witch hexes your Wi-Fi, and I'll see y'all in the next haunting.